We're going to go ahead and start on today's topic. I know that there are some technical issues with echoes and sometimes the audio is not very audible. So if you have any problems regarding any clarity of hearing, please let me know. I'll try to work on it and get it fixed. But for now, let us begin with today's topic. So today we're focusing on the Divine Mother, one and many. So over here, I have two posts that have been previously posted on our Devi Mahatmya Facebook page, which talks about how the Divine Mother can take many forms. I actually have a story from the holy text of Devi Mahatmya that I would like us to read together today. But before I go into the story, I would like us to have a little bit of a discussion on what the topic means to each of us individually when we say the Divine Mother, one and many. So the floor is open. You can go ahead and start talking whenever you're comfortable. Just to repeat, my question is, what does the Divine Mother, one and many, mean to us as individual devotees?
Well, in my case, my devotion to the Mother was in the name of Maria, Jesus' Mother, or God's Mother, in Spanish. And as a child, I used to pray to her and recite her name, repeat her name when I went to school and study. So it's a very long way that I have had the devotion to the Mother. In this case, as I was saying, in the form of Mary, right? Later on, I deepened my interest in other aspects of other forms of the Mother. Of course, particularly mythology and philosophy. That have been a long time interest.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes. So the Divine Mother is one across history, across cultures, across ancient and contemporary civilizations. We've seen her emerge in various forms, taking various names for identity for the devotees. But essentially, it's the one Divine Mother that we're all devoted to. So, Alberto, thank you so much for sharing your views. Is there anybody else who would like to talk a little bit about their understanding of the Divine Mother, one and many? Okay, I suppose we can move on. As our platform is the Devi Mahatmya Digital Temple, we're devoted to the holy text and the learning and knowledge from the Devi Mahatmya. The story that I have today for us to share and discuss is from the final Charita of the Devi Mahatmya. And it's a summarized story. It's the story about the Divine Mother slaying the demons or asuras, Shumbh and Nishumb. I can read out the story if that's convenient for you, or if you think it'll be more convenient, I can also leave the story on here for you to read by yourself. So let me know whichever works and I'll do what is convenient for everyone.
For me, you can
read it out? Okay, perfect. All right. So long ago, to arrogant asuras, the brothers Shumbh and Nishumb seized Lord Indra's sovereignty over the three worlds. And once again, the gods were disposed. So over here, it says once again, because prior to this, there are two other stories or allegories which talk about other demons disposing the gods from their heavenly abode. So this is the last one. That's why it says, once again, the gods were dispossessed. The Devi, the Divine Mother, had promised that whenever remembered in times of distress, she would appear and put an end to misfortune. And so the gods invoked her with praise. She emerged in a resplendent form from the body of Ma Parvati and took up her abode in the Himalayas. Soon her captivating beauty caught the attention of Chanda and Munda, Shumbha and Nishumba's two servants, who reasoned that since their masters had already stolen everything of value from the gods, should they not also possess this most beautiful of goddesses? Shumbha sent his messenger Sugriva to beguile the Divine Mother to come to him and Nishumba. But Sugriva returned with a challenge, for the Divine Mother had vowed long ago that whoever she married would first have to conquer her in battle. Shumbha appointed the chieftain Bhumralochana to bring her back by force, and after his failed attempt, Chanda and Munda were sent to fetch her. The Divine Mother saw them and their immense army approaching, and when she scowled, the frightful goddess Ma Kali sprang forth from her brow and slaughtered the demon hordes. Moving on. Next, Shumbha marshaled all the Asura clans, and in turn, the Divine Mother evoked her Shaktis, 7 fierce goddesses who sprang forth from the bodies of the gods. From her own body, the most terrifying Shakti of all, Ma Shivaduti, came forth and sent the great Lord Shiva himself as a messenger to Shumbha and Nishumba to warn them of the consequences of battle. The arrogant Asuras took no heed, and fighting of unprecedented fierceness left in its wake a scene of gruesome slaughter. While the surviving demons fled from the fury of the Mahashaktis, the great Asura Raktabija strode onto the battlefield. Whenever a drop of his blood touched the ground, it grew into an Asura of equal size and strength, and soon the Divine Mother's hosts against battled countless foes. Terror seized the gods, but the Divine Mother merely laughed, while Ma Kali began to drink in the drops of blood and the Asuras being born therefrom. As she consumed them, others did not arise. Finally, the mighty Raktabija, drained of blood, fell dead. Then Shumbha and Nishumba themselves battled with the Divine Mother and her Shaktis until Nishumba too lay slain. In rage and grief, Shumbha reproached the Divine Mother for relying on the strength of others, but she replied that the Mahashaktis were but projections of her own power. Drawing them back into herself, she stood alone against him. And at the climax of battle, the two leapt to the sky and fought in mid-air until the Divine Mother sent the great Shumbha crashing to the earth. When he lay dead, the sky cleared, the sun shone in glory, and the universe rested in luminous calm. The gods praised the Divine Mother in a great hymn of thanksgiving, and she pledged her protection and blessing thenceforth to all who praise her with hymns, recite the destruction of the Asuras, and worship her with devotion. So this was our story, and I thought that to solidify the understanding of the story and to go into deeper meditation and consideration of what the story is trying to provide us with, the lesson that the story is trying to provide us with, we should have some discussion questions. So I have 4 discussion questions. So with each discussion question, I'll give you an opportunity to provide your views, and then we will go into further discussion. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes, fine.
Perfect. So the first question that we have is, who are the 7 Mahashaktis or matrikas. So obviously there is no right or wrong answer
Can
over
I
here. Yes, it
answer?
is what we take from the story. Yes, absolutely. Lalita, please go ahead.
Yes. And the one is and the seven Mahashakti is also known as Matrika is Brahmi, consorts of Brahmadev, Vaishnavi, consorts of Narayan or Vishnu, Maheshwari, consorts of Maheshwaras or Lord Shiva, and Chamunda, the goddess, it is like the goddess Kali, and Varahi, Shaktis or Varahat, Narasinghi, and also known as Avadara Bhadragali in Tamil traditions. And the last one is Komari, also known the Shaktis and energies of Kartikeya's Murugan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lalita. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else wants to share?
I believe when there was the blood from the Asuras coming down to the air, I believe there's a myth of fertilization, of creation and also fertilization as well in this myth of the Asuras and the blood coming down like a dragon. From the dragon, there are also some illustration even in opera and other literature. Myth of creation, fertilization.
Okay, so the myth of creation and fertilization. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else?
Also known the forms of Adibara Shakti.
Absolutely. Yes. So as the topic clearly spells out, the Divine Mother, one and many. So the seven matrikas, even though they may have different names and different origin stories, are all individualized powers of the one Divine Mother, right? So the gods, as we saw in the story, were distressed that the Asuras have once again overturned the world order. To be able to defeat the Asuras, they invoke the Divine Mother in a magnificent hymn, which is called the Aparajita Stuti. It is the praise of the invincible goddess. It can be found in the holy text of Devi Mahatmya as one of its angas. Now, this praise to the invincible goddess celebrates her eminence in the world as the consciousness that manifests in all beings. So it's not that the Divine Mother only manifests in forms which are known as the other Divine Mothers, like the seven Mahamatrikas. There are the seven Mahavidyas as well. But the entire creation is actually also manifestation of the one Divine Mother. She is present and she is eminent in every being in the universe. Thereupon, the Divine Mother appears on the bank of Ganga. So this story takes place on the bank of the river Ganga, where her manifestation emerging from the body of Ma Parvati embodies the gunas of sattva, the energy of light, purity, peace, and goodness. Now, we see that when she was invoked or praised by the gods, she emerges from the body of Ma Parvati. This is not to say that she's been created by Ma Parvati, but she is present in Ma Parvati as her higher self. And when called upon, the Divine Mother, the higher self in every being, emerged to help those who were in need. So having already revealed her tamasic and rajasic aspects, she appears as sattvic and bewitchingly beautiful, although she took on multiple and varied forms in the course of the battle. So we see that she first emerges in her warrior form from the body of Ma Parvati, and then during the battle, she also emits her different Shaktis, who then manifests as the 7 Matrikas to aid her in the battle against Shumbha and Nishumba. So is there anything you want to add onto that description, or if you have any questions, we can discuss it.
Well, from the point of view of metaphysics, there is the Trimurti, which is the three gods, and
Right.
gods and gods, but Satchit Ananda, and in this case, Ananda or splendor of beauty and love, that would represent the goddess Ananda, rather than the other two parts of the Trimurti, Sat, Chit, Sat, being, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda, beauty, or which the feminine I would see there.
Right, absolutely, yes. Thank you for adding that, Alberto. That's wonderful. And according to the Shakta tradition, according to the text, holy text of the Devi Mahatmya, it is the Divine Mother who is Satchit Ananda. She is the one who manifests as everything. She's omnipresent. She's present in all, and she is who manifests and expresses herself through everything that is there in creation. So moving on to the next discussion question, what do the demons in this story represent? So in this story, we see Shumbha Nishumba, who are the featured demons. We also see Chandamunda, who are the servants of Shumbha Nishumba. We see Dhumralochana, who's the chieftain of their army. And in the end, we also see Raktabija, who's a very interesting demon. Now, all these demons do symbolize or represent something that is very relevant to us as human beings in our lives. Anybody wants to answer what that representation might be? So basically, in all these stories, Devi Mahatmya talks us through our life and provides us with a deeper meaning and deeper understanding of living our lives. So every myth, story, allegory is metaphorical to what exists in our lives. The Divine Mother is the symbolization of power, Shakti, and she always is fighting against these demons or asuras that symbolize what keeps us away from divinity, such as our ego, our worldly attachment, our materialistic fondness, our ignorance, our individuality. So the demons in this story, Shumbha represents the ego, and his younger brother Nishumba represents its sense of attachment. They are central to the entire catalog of human failings and vices. The portrayal of Shumbha amidst the glittering excess of his ill-gotten riches and powers is a sickening picture of corruption and materialism gone mad. The demons Chanda and Munda appeal to their master's immense vanity and inflame it with lust, with tempting descriptions of the Divine Mother's captivating beauty. The demon Raktabija symbolizes amazing replicative ability. His red blood, symbolic of Rajas, represents the awesome power of desire and mental restlessness. Just as each drop that falls to the earth produces another asura, so does one desire or thought lead to another. In other words, indulgence leads to insatiability. So in the path of spirituality, or in the path of seeking the higher self, or in the path of devotion or going closer to the divine, what the things that hold us back is our ego and attachment to that ego, and then the want for material things, which sort of stem or give rise to other ill feelings such as corruption, lust. And lust over here is not essentially in the sexual sense. We can also lust for riches. We can also lust for anything material that exceeds what we actually require or what we need. That can also be considered as lust. So all of those things that sort of push us back from going closer to what the reality is, like Alberto mentioned, Satchit Anand, the divinity, which is omnipresent in all of us. So the veil of ignorance that is stemming from the ego and the attachment, all of that is represented by the demons in this story. So anybody wants to add to that, or any question that we would want to discuss before we move on to the next discussion?
Well, in Buddhism, there are the beginning of suffering, what is the root of suffering, and it is grasping, right? Grasping. Then there are the derivation from that. So, and desire, therefore desire at the most individual and exacerbated. So that is clearly is a very important symbol, the desire and grasping.
Right.
And then the way, then the eightfold way of the Buddha, how to overcome those limitations and those attachments. That the eightfold way of the Buddha.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. That's actually a great segue into the other discussion questions. That's wonderful. Every path leads to the one divine. Every path may have different terminologies. Every path may have different understanding of the knowledge, but essentially it all leads us to the same goal. The one divine mother, or the one divine supreme, the divine consciousness, the divine intelligence, whichever way we might want to name or term the divine. Okay, so we'll move on to the next discussion question, which is, why does Ma Kali drink Raktabija's blood? So this is a wonderful segment in the story where there is this demon who every time is struck and bleeds, from his blood, another demon of the same size and same strength is born. And it was Ma Kali who ultimately defeated Raktabija by lapping up all his blood. Now this is metaphorical, of course, and to you, what do you think it is a metaphor for? What is it trying to represent that could be relevant to our everyday life?
What is the question? What is the symbol of what?
So if you remember from the story, there is a demon called Raktabija who, when he gets struck by a weapon and bleeds, from his blood, another demon of the same size comes up. So it becomes difficult to defeat him. But then in the end, he is defeated, and he's defeated by Ma Kali, who drinks up all his blood. So the question over here is, what do you think that represents? The blood and the drinking up of all the blood. What do you think that represents is the discussion question.
Well, it made me think of humanity, fallen humanity, the blood that came from dragons.
Okay.
The humanity in
So that is
this, yeah.
that is a wonderful perspective because it does relate to humanity. So Raktabij's death marks, but before we come to Raktabij's death, let's talk about the metaphor of Ma Kali lapping up the dripping blood and what it symbolizes. So Ma Kali lapping up the dripping blood symbolizes the sound principle that human desires and uncontrolled mental activity are best conquered if nipped in the bud. So nipping something in the bud is a very common English expression. It means that before something can manifest into a bigger form, creating a bigger problem, it's better to just omit it when it's still arising. So Raktabija's blood over here symbolizes human desire and the attachment to human desire. Human desire is such a mental activity that once it starts happening, it's hard to stop. It's going to come one after another. There is no end to how much a human mind or a human ego can desire. And sometimes satiating these desires can mean that the human is so caught up in trying to live for those desires that they fail to appreciate life the way it should be. So therefore, this is a symbolic of actually getting rid of desires before they can become so huge that it takes over your mental health, mental capacity to appreciate life and to live it in a way which would bring you closer to the Divine Mother.
So the desire, according to some Upanishads, desire creates more desire and more anxiety.
Absolutely.
And that, of course, that is the will of karma, both of samsara and
right.
also of karma. Karma, that mystery of karma, it is a reality and it's a mystery at the same time. Or it is more than a myth. It is very valuable as a myth.
Yes.
But
yes.
this reproduces itself, never ending.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is absolutely what is being said over here. And all the stories that we read in the Devi Mahatmya are actually, even they are very poetic, they're shlokas, they're very metaphorical, but if you can strip away the metaphor and look at the real symbolism that is shining through, you will see that it's very, very relevant to our human life. And it teaches us how to live life and how to be able to get over our lower selves that is entrapped in the ego and desires and rise above to reach closer to our higher self and to the Divine Mother. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so this, yes, please go ahead.
It reminds me of a saying by a sage, an Indian sage, Ananda Kumaraswamy, who wrote that myth is half the truth, but mythology is half the truth.
Absolutely.
Kumaraswamy, so that it's not just there's a misunderstanding about these things, about myth or mythology. Very much, very much substance into these things.
Wonderful. Thank you for mentioning that very, very important point. And we will now move on to our next question, which is also our last discussion question, and it's a big one. So again, when we discuss this question, it'll be helpful to take into account the symbolism, the metaphors that we find over here, and to really understand how these metaphors relate to our real life, what we can learn from these metaphors and use in our real life. So the question is, what does the slaying of Shumbha and Nishumbha represent? At the end of the story, we saw that Shumbha and Nishumbha were slain by the Divine Mother. And we know that Shumbha and Nishumbha are actually symbols of ego and desire and corruption. So what do you think that the slaying of these demons represents in our real life?
So,
Well,
shall I answer?
clearly, all desires come from the limited self, that is the called the ego, or the limited self or ego, all the desires which lead to ultimately the frustration, wanting more, and never being satisfied. So again, going back to the samsara, the eternal return, it feeds upon itself. This ambition and desire feeds upon itself, and it perpetuates the samsara.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Alberto. And Lalita, you also wanted to add something. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
Rishaji.
Yeah.
I know because of the unsought negative vibes. The wing of positive vibes also from the demand. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So, one by one, the outward manifestation of ego have been vanquished, and only its essence, represented by Shumbha and Nishumbha, remains against the Divine Mother and her forces, right? So in the story, we see that Shumbha and Nishumbha, the main featured demons, were the last to be slain before the Divine Mother got to them. She had to, with her 7 Shaktis, slay and defeat the other demons who were accompanying Shumbha and Nishumbha. When Nishumbha, symbolizing attachment, sprouts 10,000 grasping arms, his awful transmutation is an act of ugly desperation. We know that Nishumbha is the representation of attachment. So even in our human psychology, in our human mind, what does attachment do? It's very hard to get rid of attachment. Attachment as a vritti of the mind, as an activity of the mind, is kind of like an octopus with maybe 10,000 tentacles, right? It grasps you from all sides. If you cut down one tentacle, there's another one that's going to come and grasp you. So attachment to the ego, attachment to desires, attachment to your limited self is very hard to get over, right? It's a struggle. So the struggle between Nishumbha and the Divine Mother is symbolic of that struggle which human mind goes through in trying to get rid of attachment, or trying to go over, to overcome attachment. So, but the Divine Mother's spear, representing insight, leaves the Asura exposed and vulnerable. So again, the weapons that the Divine Mother uses against the demons are also symbolic. For instance, the Divine Mother's spear, which she uses to impale the demons, is symbolic of insight and the light of knowledge. So even in our human spiritual journey, what do we see? How can we overcome our limited selves? How can we overcome our sense of attachment or our attachment to ego? We can do it with knowledge. The more we are enlightened with higher knowledge, the more we are able to let go of ego, the more we are able to transcend our limited self and go forward in our path of liberation. So the mighty demon that emerges from Nishumba's gaping chest wound calls for the Divine Mother to stop. But in sadhana, halfway measures simply won't do. She annihilates him with her sword of knowledge. So all of this is very symbolic of how a spiritual seeker journeys from the point of the limited self to being liberated or transcending to the point of the higher self. All the struggle that the seeker goes through, right? First of all, it's very hard to get over that attachment. It's very hard to identify the ego as an illusion, as a false self. And to really overcome all of that, you need to have the right knowledge. You need to worship and be devoted to the Divine Mother so that she can provide you with the proper guidance, right? And her weapons are symbolic of that knowledge and the guidance, which will lead a seeker, which will lead a devotee into the path towards liberation and transcendence.
There is a saying in, I think, in some Upanishad that there is no lustral water like unto knowledge. It's an Upanishad. Then it refers me to Shankaracharya, the great sage that dealt with all this. And another point I wanted to center on, it's mind. Mind, it's a phenomenon, it's a reality, or mind is a superimposition. To understand what is mind, this is the root of all the problem, but also of liberation. Mind, there is mind, it can be the healer and it is slayer as well. Mind can liberate you and it can take you to an abysm. So, but according to Shankara, it is only important to know, it is only a superimposition on consciousness. So it's not the whole thing. Above mind is the spirit or the spirit or sat. So that's the thing to understand, that mind can liberate you as well as put you into change.
Absolutely, absolutely. The mind can liberate you. The mind can also chain you and keep you limited and trapped in your sense of ego and attachment, right? That's wonderful. So this is what the story is trying to tell us, that mind is really the battlefield. And in the mind, we have demons or asuras, which represents the ego, the attachments, the materialistic needs, wants, corruption. And in the mind, we can also have the light of the Divine Mother, which will purify it, which will get rid of the demons and ultimately empty our mind and enlighten it so that we can go closer to the truth. So this is what the story represents or teaches us. It is really all about how to live life so that you can go closer to the graces and the blessings of the Divine Mother. And also the main aspect of this entire conversation was how it is the Divine Mother who is the one and the many. So in all our minds, in all our struggles, in all our everyday life, we face so many dilemmas, so many struggles where we have to choose between right, wrong. We have to choose between what's necessary and what's not required. So all of that is basically manifestations of the Divine Mother. And we just need to be able to allow the Divine Mother to guide us away from the demons in our minds and towards the light of enlightenment, right? So that's basically what the story said. And she also comes to us in her very many forms as she manifests as so many of us. She also appears to us in very many forms, but in the end, it is the one divine mother that's omnipresent and guiding all of us towards her, the higher self, right?
One can see also the Ishvara, the creator God, as being the feminine aspect of Brahman, which is the way you see it, is Brahman, Shiva, Brahman, but that it is the I got anyway.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And also, according to the Devi Mahatma, it is the Divine Mother who is the supreme being, the Ishwari, the supreme being, who actually also manifests as the other gods and the other goddesses. All of them are her divine manifestations.
Yes, in other words, Satchit Ananda.
Yes.
That is represented by the highest mother, by the divinity of by the spirit or Atman. It's everything there, everything.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. So that was our discussion. It was very lovely to hear your point of views. Thank you for participating. We're actually very close to the end of our meeting. What we have right now is just some housekeeping discussions like the activities of the Divine Temple. So we have posts that go up on the Facebook page and the websites, and we also have an Instagram page now. So we have the regular posts that go up there. The posts actually are always talking about the different forms of the Divine Mother. Sometimes we have mantras that we share. Sometimes we have other aspects and knowledge of the Divine Mother that we share. We've also started posting mantra chant videos on YouTube. So these videos are very simple. They're very beginner friendly. So if somebody wants to begin chanting mantras and are looking for very easy ways of doing so, these videos can be very, very helpful. We also have newsletters that go out every month. You can sign up for these newsletters and we will be sending them to you. They basically talk about everything that is going on in the temple throughout the month. And we also started taking artwork from our members. We've received a lot of wonderful paintings and poems, which are going to be featured in the newsletters and other Devi Mahatma Digital Temple platforms as well. So right now we're doing the meetings weekly, every week. And every week we would like to bring in a new story and talk about the Divine Mother and how it relates to our lives, what we can learn from it, what we can take from it, and how we can use the lessons to make our lives better and more meaningful. So this is what is happening at the temple right now, but you as members, you're very valuable to us. And if you have any suggestions that we could incorporate, please let us know. This is a teamwork, really, and we all want to sort of be devoted in this journey of knowing and learning and spreading the knowledge about the Divine Mother together. So your suggestions and your recommendations are always, always welcome. If you have something to say right now, you're welcome to do so. You join our Facebook page. You can always send us inbox messages. We'll get back to you. So I'll let you talk about it a little bit more if you have something to say, and then maybe we can end the meeting.
For me, just to say thank you very much, and I will follow on those words.
Wonderful. Your participation is very, very valuable for us. Thank you so much for being in the meeting today. I know that it's not always easy to make time, but I'm very, 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 very grateful for your participation. Lalita, would you like to?
Thank you for your sharing, Jai Mataji.
Jai Mataji. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. So this meeting has been recorded. It is going to be uploaded for you to watch again and refer to. So we're going to end the meeting now. Again, thank you to everyone who has attended the meeting today. Thank you so very much. I look forward to seeing you again in our next meeting with a new topic and a lot more new discussion.
Very good. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much, Parashakti.
have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you again. Thank you.